Now open your eyes and continue to think about that. Keep your eyes open. People throw around the word woke. We have that opportunity every day. If you really want to know what's going on, there is a lot of information out there. I'm not asking you to go 400 years ago, because we'll never play catch up at that point. Too much of that is already understood, but think about what they had to go through just to get to the point that we are now. And that's what I live in every conversation that I have. So one more that I want to focus on is getting your license. This is a fun one for a lot of reasons. And with a lot of children, you have a lot of different experiences. So, in a white household, the reality is you focus on the permit, helping them understand the 1, 2, 3s of what to focus on when they're driving, right? How close to come before a red light, stop sign. Make sure you give this much space before you're, to the car in front of you. All the good things that you probably could read in a permit book. The safety necessary when you're driving. All of these things are important, right? But there's still anxiety there because we're a little bit worried. What car would they like? Which is a great question in itself, and one that we can't ask our children in most scenarios. We get what we can and hope that we get a deal. But the what car we like, that's a fun conversation to have in a white household. So if a black household is having that conversation, let me remove the hard issues like affordability or if a vehicle can be purchased. All right, we already know that those things are tougher. So I'll take that off the table because that's anxiety in itself. Your first convo is around safety and driving, making sure that they're following the rules, things of that sort. Our first conversation around driving is driving while black and what to do when you're pulled over by the police. We also focus on the necessities of driving while black. Hands visible, with both outside the driver window. Keep still as possible. Keep your car info in plain view so that you can be seen reaching for it if need be. Do not be confrontational, even if they stopped you for no reason. Be clear and concise in your answers. That is the conversation that we have to have. Because of young black people dying for no reason whatsoever by those who are empowered to protect. But the minute we bring up something around changes, we are the problem. Not all the things that are going on or that are happening. Not just to young black men and women, but to adult black men and women. My son he'll be 19 years old. He still hasn't gotten his license. 19-year-old, 6'2", 240, big guy. It was almost like having the conversation when he finally decided he wanted cornrows and the uncomfortability that gave me because of a big guy that loves to wear sweatsuits all the time with cornrows, walking home maybe from his grandmother's to his father's or his mother's house. And his uncomfortability to want to be out there driving. I mean, that tells a huge story. And I can afford to get him a car. But the conversations don't end based on where you've gone or where you've gotten to. And you can't forget that as a person that's gotten there. And a lot of black folks do. We get some power and we blow it up to the point where we think that we've led the next generation, and we haven't. We do that by leading in a different way, showing them how it can be done, and continuing to open opportunities for others like us. But basically, the convo is everything about being black when we're talking about just getting a license. And people need to be aware of, with hope after the convo of getting home safe while black and driving is the best that we can get. It's empowering. I'll never forget a time when I first got allowed to, drive and take the car. As always, I broke curfew and came in a little bit late. I got grounded for it here and there. But this is one of those times where it was overly. I just broke. There couldn't even been a conversation about curfew because it was broken in every way possible well later than it needed to be. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to kind of extend it a little bit because when I get home, I'm grounded and I'm in trouble anyway. My mother hugged me. For about 10 minutes, she just hugged me, crying because she was so happy that I was home. And that just impacted me in a different way. It didn't make me think, okay, now I can come back late all the time. It honestly made me get more comfortable with the curfew because I didn't understand that kind of anxiety from someone or that kind of pain or worry based on the fact that I was just out driving in the neighborhood like anybody else would have. But I'm glad I did learn it, and I'm glad she was honest so that I could be more honest as well. Even in a black family, to my point, if an expensive car is affordable, we have to think about what others will think if our black child is riding in a car. If my guy's riding down in a Fiesta, I'm not as concerned about it. But if my black son or daughter is riding down the street in a Mercedes, I'm concerned about what a cop is going to think about the fact that they're driving in that car. I've been pulled over at lights when someone looked and saw that I was a black man in a Cadillac. I had to have answers for driving the same car that a whole lot of people drive. So even in scenarios where we can afford, now the anxiety is, do we want to get them that really nice car? Because that may put a target on their back. The worst part is that we have to wonder why our child cannot drive the car that we want to give them because those who have oppressed us still cannot believe that we can afford to buy that car. Buying a new house. Right? When you put black people in neighborhoods, there still needs to be alphas. And I hear a lot about what we do to each other in the neighborhoods and how they're riddled with crime and drugs and so on. Why is it in our neighborhoods you can afford drugs and guns, but you can't afford cars and houses? That's not by accident. These things are infiltrated in. And then we're pointed at as if we grew it or we understood how to put this complex scenario together at the end of the day. We'd give all of that stuff up to move out of those neighborhoods just like you would to have the opportunities at housing and things of that sort. So again, leave the resources and the systematic breakdown of how we can even afford to clothe our children for another conversation. You can look at multiple websites to see the vast difference between the acceptance and denial rates for white and black people. That in itself will give you a mirrored picture of what's going to happen or the odds that you have walking into the same bank as someone else that is a different color than you. Another reminder that you expect us to be in the same position as white buyers, knowing the system is rigged, and it's the reason that we are not. Again, continue to think about those things. You talk about planning on when you'll buy a house. Not as much worry about acceptance or if you'll be able to or if they will be able to. We do not grow up seeing houses as options. If you're renting a nice place, you're the man or woman. And that's the reality at the end of the day. It doesn't say that has to be the be all end all, but the reality is you're moved on up like the Jeffersons, regardless. But if you only give us the opportunities you do or the resources that you do, how do you expect us to fall into your accept and denial rates? What makes you think because a black man or woman has to work a lot harder to make as much money that they cannot be as trusted and as loyal to wanting to take care of their home and pay for it? Why don't you fix loans so that you can help those in different situations? So you can't just, again, some black people own houses and others don't. Look at the masses. Use the data to figure out why, not to flourish when it looks good in certain scenarios. You see, we want all the same things. We all just have to be honest around why it is less likely for us to have them. That recognition between black and white people is what is necessary for change to occur. Not out of the norm. Wow, that's messed up for them, but it doesn't impact me. That's the world that most of you live in. You see it. You take the garbage out. You see the neighbors. You know the neighborhoods where you lock your doors. You know the neighborhoods that you've already mapped out on the map not to go to, not to visit, to make sure you don't even go down that path during your visit or get lost there, just in case you might have to ask for directions or some help. Let's keep it 100. So look at these things the same way. Don't look at the things that supposedly make us different. Look at the commonalities and understand that if they had some of these things that I had coming up, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation, because that's the reality and where this needs to go. When you think about clothing, we as parents have quarrels about the clothes that our children wear. We all have conversations about outfits that we don't like or that we think may be inappropriate for our kids to wear. The biggest concern is sending them to the room to change into another outfit. You tell them what to wear, how it should represent them, or how they should be representing themselves, which to me still has some solace in it. For us, we have to have conversations around what not to wear, or why there's just another outfit to go and put on. Do not wear hoodies as a young black man, because you might be mistaken for someone. Our hairstyles, make sure they don't scare people. You know, I talked about my son with the cornrows. That is natural for us. That is our natural ability. It's what our hair does. I joke all the time because I hear people, you go to Jamaica, everybody's getting their hair braided. Well, it doesn't work for my hair. Well, why laugh at somebody whose it does then? Those are differences that are cultural at the end of the day. That's why you have to know color. Because if you don't figure it out at all, you're probably going to be asking questions or trying to figure things out forever. But asking a black person to explain why their hair looks like that, or is it soft, or did someone do that for you, is no different than them asking you how you got gelled up for the day, or you get yours to kink up the way it does, or stand up straight, or mohawk, whatever it may be. But what would we be if we asked those questions? Jewelry and expensive items. Don't wear them because you're not expected to be able to afford them. If we're chunk full of diamonds, nice watch, and some rings, we're a rapper. We have to be in the rap game or something like that. There's always got to be a reason why they can afford it. Again, if you've made those assumptions before and you correlate those things, then you also have the responsibility to figure out why you think that that's an okay analogy, and why those are the only people that are black that you think can afford things like that. And I would throw drug dealer out there, but I'm not going to, because to me, that's not an alternative, or that's not a reason for someone to say that someone has something unless you know something for sure. But the reality is, we celebrate sneakers, we celebrate chains, we celebrate things like that because that is our be-all, end-all to some extent. That's the best that we see people in our neighborhoods have. That is our Mercedes, whether you like it or not. And I even talked about that with Obama in one of his conversations where he's like, put that money away, save it for the... How long do you think they'll have to save if it took them 2 years to get that gold chain? How long do you think they would have to save to be able to get that car that they want? Who do you have that's going to help? What banks have all of a sudden changed their mind and who they're dealing with and why? We have to ask our children not to represent themselves the way they want to because of how they'll be accepted in society. To pull away from their dignity, what they stand for and who they are, so that others can be more comfortable with who we are and what we wear or what we say. Our culture is all we have. Brilliance brought about with abundantly less resources, and we're not even allowed to display that with confidence and pride. In conclusion, I'll say this. This is in no way to diminish anxiety and all that suffer from it, including mental illness. It's one of the things that I talk about all the time. It's one of the things that I think are the most important. But what I do understand is that Black people have had to bury mental illness and anxiety for a very long time. If we did walk into a doctor's office, we weren't believable. If we tried to talk to a counselor or a psychiatrist, How would they give us an angle on what to do without understanding our blackness? If you want more from our children, bring in more black teachers. If you want more comfortability in our neighborhoods, bring in more black police. If you want us to get a fair shot when we go to court and we're not represented by those who think that they know who we are because they've judged 10 others who were guilty, bring in more black judges, black senators, black lawmakers. That is a fix. And it's really about just giving some of the opportunity that you should have given a long time ago. This isn't a pity ask. These are just a few examples of it, so that we think about what gives you anxiety and then think about what you heard here. The commonality of helping you understand something that you go through on a regular basis, but then understand it in the way that we deal with it as well, is extremely important in how we overcome the obstacles that are in front of us. If not for us, how do our youth get the same chances? How do we build that? When can we start saying you can be whatever you want to be? When can we give them the same feeling that you give yours when we go for an interview? Just a good luck, a hug, and I know you're going to be able to do it. Those are simple things. Simple things in life that most are able to do, congratulate, and celebrate. Where we have to build out a repertoire of what can happen or what might happen. Again, not because we want to, but because we need our children to be fully educated on the opportunities and what can occur. The goal is that we understand it as a group and how serious it is and how it impacts our nation. This is one of the reasons it's so important for white parents to pay more attention and become allies. You see, we're forced to have real and uncomfortable conversations with our children where other parents can ignore it because it will not impact their children. This allows white children then to accept what they see happen to others that are different than them. But not only that, but accept it without despair and possibly follow suit with their own biases. As a nation, we have to stand up and fight those who have to deal with this on another level. And not just the black people. Black anxiety is a continued reminder of going through the hard decisions in life with a truth that is different from others. Black anxiety can be a life sentence or a scar that continues to show no matter what you do. You just can't cover it up. Black anxiety can be a nightmare that we have survived, but now have to talk our children through how they can overcome what we've survived. It is our reality built by the reality that others want without us. Wanting black people to explain ourselves to build your comfortability is like ripping a scab off every time it starts to heal. Maybe the goal should be for those who cause this oppression to try to justify it. To have to answer the questions on why they feel the way they feel about black people, why they don't give us the same opportunities, why we've been oppressed for so long. We have always been on trial. From infants, we are immediately on trial. And our parents and ourselves as we become parents, become lawyers and attorneys just to be able to justify the things that happen to our children or the avenues that they need to take to be able to be successful and live the American dream. Our clothing, our music. I just heard the commercial for the Indianapolis 500. It was all hip hop music. The Indianapolis 500. So it's okay to make money off of these things, to put our urban wear in stores. You think about our music, you were afraid of it for a long time until your kids demanded to listen to it themselves, or they started to change their hair or the way that they wore their outfits. but you make us do it. The way we have to send our kids to school with your uniforms on. The way you don't like certain things about the way we wear our clothes. That's different at the end of the day. That's forcing someone to be someone else because they don't fit your world. And your world is our world too, whether you like it or not. Last last but not least. So again, you go back to how it's okay to make money off of those things, use our music, use our culture in your stores and stadiums, but why are we not in those malls? Why are we not owning these stores and displaying our Black brilliance with the culture that you've decided is okay to sell and market based on what you're doing? My message for all Black, Hispanic, Pacific Island, Native American, Asian American, Jewish, LGBTQ, any group that is oppressed are brothers and sisters. By battling oppression one group at a time, we allow this broken system to fix these issues one group at a time. Let's find our overlapping issues, unite as one. Our power and brilliance should be known and understood as well. By battling these issues one group at a time, it allows those that hate more ammunition to hate and the ability to break us down one group at a time. Our country is the most brilliant in any part of the world, but we have to start reaping the benefits of that and understanding that everyone deserves that same aspiration of greatness, goodness, more, being impactful, and knowing that those that stand next to them, regardless of what skin color they are, will do everything in their power to make sure that the person next to them feels that way too. We can change and take on the things that those in power don't want to. We can speak out about things that don't make sense. We can be honest about things that we see when we see them so that others know that it's not okay to do that. But being lonely and having to navigate through society because of reasons that we have nothing to do with is a problem. And the minute that all of us understand that and work together, the brilliance that we have connecting to one another will make America greater for everyone at the end of the day, including those who already have more than others. I appreciate you listening. I'll be putting these out on a regular basis. You can follow me at Holly803 on Instagram. Website will be coming soon as well. But the goal is to continue to have conversations like this and just open people's minds in simple convo of what they can do to be different. If you decide that you want to read a book that just tells a real story about what people go through, how you can act differently, how you can be an ally, how you can get to know them more, how you can support their culture as well as they do yours, then read the book. If you want truth about how to navigate through corporate America and what it took to be able to do that and the things that you have to bear and deal with, then read it. As a Black person, if you want to know a little bit more about how to use your passion in ways that make sense in regard to your journey, then read the book. But if you want stats and proof that things are happening to millions of people, that's a different book to read. This isn't about how many books I sell. It's about how many people listen and how many people continue to listen and how many people are advocates and wanting to become allies, learning more about the people that they're around every day, and making sure that comfortability isn't a conversation anymore. It's about building relationships, building greatness, and building it together. Thanks, everybody.